it's Theresa. I am going to have a little bit different of a video today. We're going to be working on some resin projects, a little resin how-to. By no means am I an expert, but I'm going to share some of what I have learned. I'm still learning. I'm still pretty new with this, but I want to share that with you. So to start off, I'm going to show you a little bit about mixing and things like that. Now, on this project that I'm mixing up for right now, I am using Rockstar Resin. It's a smaller company. I haven't seen a ton about it. I liked it. It was a good resin. I think that it's not necessarily something I'll use for like a food contact. I've been super particular about food contact stuff. And we'll talk more about like my final thoughts on resin stuff in the end. So on this resin, along with most of the resins I've been using so far, this is a 1-to-1, meaning you want equal parts of the resin and equal parts of the hardener. Now, check to make sure the directions on each one of your own particular things of resin. Some of them will tell you how to do it for weight. Some of them will tell you to do it by volume. I think the only ones I've seen that are like the equal parts has been by volume. And once you've mixed it all in, I am going to give it a lot of good stirring. When you're stirring it, you make sure you scrape all of the sides, out the bottom. And on here, I am using like just a little spatula that I got from the Dollar Tree. There are mixers that you can do attached to a drill, or ones that are just like a little hand wand, that kind of thing. It just want to make sure that you're mixing it really nicely and you're trying not to get too many like air bubbles. So this is sped up, so I am not mixing it quite so violently, but you do mix for a good like 3 to 5 minutes. I'm not going to show you all of it because we'd be here forever. Once it's good and mixed, I am going to kind of scrape around the sides and make sure that it's all good and mixed together. Now, I don't show it here, but another option, well, I do show it here actually, just kidding. I'm going to take some separate cups. Now, this is kind of up to you how you want to do this. If you think your stuff is super well mixed, you don't have to take it out of the main container. That is what I've been doing lately, just to ensure that my resin is fully mixed, because if it is not mixed all the way, it's not going to cure properly, and that's going to mess up your project. So I'm taking it and I'm putting it in separate cups, and like I said, I have since started pouring out. Yeah, actually, I think I did do it on here. I don't pour out the last little bit. I don't scrape off the bottom of that container, because that is going to be the parts that aren't mixed. Now I've got 4 separate little cups. These are just throwaway cups. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave one clear. That's the one I moved away. I'm going to do a couple with some different pigment. This is some mica powder. This one is from Black Diamond. There's a few different brands out there that I've tried so far that I've really liked. These first 2 are kind of in a bluish tone. And then this next one I'm using is like a resin. I'm not sure what to even call it. It's not really it's a liquid, but it's a very thick liquid. And you'll see there, I just completely got the blue pigment all over my hand. So I'm going to switch out my gloves. I don't know if everyone does this, but I constantly feel like I'm switching out gloves. But you want to make sure that whatever pigment you're adding, you're mixing it. Check to see what like ratio you can get. If you put too much of it, you're not going to end up being able to get your resin to cure right. So something to kind of think about is make sure you're not putting too much, but you're putting enough to get, your color. So on to one of the easier kinds of projects that you can do when you're first starting out with resin are things in molds. Now keep in mind, this resin that I'm using is a pour resin. It is not a casting resin. There's a difference. So make sure you pay attention to that. And what I'm doing is I'm putting in pretty thin layers. This is a very thin mold. So just pay attention to your mold that it's not going to be too thick for your resin. So I am taking my dark blue and my light blue and I'm kind of mixing them all together just to give it a little bit more of a dimensional look, to give this kind of like a faux ocean look. We'll kind of show a little bit like next level ocean-y kind of thing in a minute. So I'm going to just pour out my resin. I believe this was actually the second project that I had made with this resin, like that I had already set up. So this is kind of like my excess. I like to use the molds and have them handy for whenever I have extra left over. So I did pour my blue and I let it set up for a little bit, mostly because I wanted my white to have a chance to really thicken up. Now this one is just a clear one right here, and I'm sorry, I did not mention, I used a blowtorch on the blue to pop any little air bubbles. And I'm just getting out the last little bit of this clear, and that is going to give me a little bit of a barrier between the blues and the white. If you do not do that, your white will mix with your blue and it'll be a slightly lighter shade of blue. So I'm just putting my white all around the edge, and again, this is going to give it like this faux oceany look. I'll show you in a minute some like next level, I think is what I called it. So I'm just pouring it in there. Now I poured way too much. I was trying to use up what I had. I wanted just to make sure that I had enough to go around. And in the future, I want to do this mold, but I want to put a little bit of sand where the white is right now first. Now I'm taking my heat gun and I am just blowing that white into the blue. And it doesn't really have anywhere to go, so it's only going to go so far and kind of like stretch back. So, and there's too much white. If I had done less white, I would have gotten more of my like cells and bubbles and foamy look to it. And then to try and help that out, I sprayed a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You want to go with like the highest percentage that you can find. So here's how they turned out. I just popped them out of the mold, easy as can be. I do need to sand down a little bit on the sides because it did leave a little bit of a sharp edge, and that's preference. You can sand it once it's, you know, nice and hard and dried and cured. You can definitely sand down resin. Something to keep in mind for your future projects. So now I'm going to make some like little trinket trays, kind of like a ring holder, something like that. I have painted them with a white acrylic paint. It's optional. There was a print on the bottom, so I had to cover it up. But I've already mixed up my resin with that same mica powder that I used on that other project. And what I'm doing is I'm putting down my darker color first, just like before, and then I'll put on my lighter color. I'm kind of trying to gauge out like where I want to put this. And in the future, when the next time I pour these like little plates or little bowls or something like that, I will definitely be taping around the edges. Not so much that I don't want the resin to get up that far, but I did have a little bit of problem with it dripping, and it didn't look as clean as I wanted it to. It worked out in the end because I could actually peel that acrylic paint off of the plate, and it's kind of only peeled up where the resin wasn't, so it worked out. I'll show you a picture here at the end. But now I'm going in and I'm putting down my lighter color, and I'm just making sure I'm trying to keep everything nice and clean and tidy. And then I'll go back because it gave me kind of a good idea of where I wanted the lighter blue and where I want the darker blue. So now I'll go back in and fill in a little bit. And now I'll go back in and fill in the rest with the lighter blue. If they touch and they mix, all the better, because that is going to give you a really nice, like, dimensional kind of look. And I'm catching all the excess with my hand and wiping it on my my wax paper. That is a nice little hint for you if you have nothing to put down on your tables. You can put wax paper down or parchment paper, and it'll be just fine. And now I'm going in and really blending those two blues, because that is going to give you just a really cool look. It's going to be super dimensional and add just a little extra touch, you know. And see how I kind of went up on the sides? This is definitely in my mind where I would want tape. In the future will probably do more of a raised edged bowl. I'm going to try that out and see how it works. So now I'm going to put down my clear, and this is where you can kind of go like another step on top of this, is where you could actually put down some clear resin but mixed with sand. Be on the lookout. I'm going to have another video coming up soon where I'm going to do that. I am actually planning on filming it probably today, so you might even see it before the end of the week. And so, like I said, though, you're putting down your clear. I want this to do two different things. I want it to hold that space so that your blue resin doesn't spread, because it is self-leveling, so it is going to try to level out. And it will do that over the course of the next, at least 5 hours, depending on your resin. And what I did is, by putting that clear down, is keeping it from leveling all the way through, over the plate. And now what I'm doing is I'm putting down some of my white. And by doing this, I'm going to blow out and give it that wave look. When you're putting your white down, you want to make sure you have some space of clear between the blue and the white. Again, because you don't want it mixing unless you want that lighter tone. Maybe you do. Some people do that. It's all personal preference and kind of working through and figuring out what works for you, what you like best. A little bit of the white goes a long way. You want to go on the lighter side of your whites because that is going to give it more space to kind of stretch out and create that like foam look, or cells as a lot of people call it. Now I'm going to go back in with my heat gun. I'm going to kind of warm it all up, and then I'm going to start to blow it out. I find you get a lot more control, a lot slower progress if you're putting it on the lower speed as opposed to the real high speed. I think at this point I was still doing it on the high speed. I have since started doing it on more of that low speed. And stay tuned, you'll see what this little work setup I have. I'm going to show you a quick video of my resin tent. I am in love with it. It makes things so nice to have a space kind of dedicated to doing all this stuff with resin. Once I have blown it all out, I'll go in and do the blowtorch, and I believe on this time around I do skip the rubbing alcohol. I kind of use it if I need it, and if I don't need it, I don't use it. It makes a lot of sense, right? But I hope you guys are excited to see more videos coming up with the resin stuff. Leave me a little wave emoji if you are. So I wanted to give you kind of a quick little rundown on the resin that I have been using lately that I have liked the best so far. So right now I'm using actually, it's called Super Clear. It's a tabletop formula, and it is a certified food grade level. That of course means once it's cured and it's like fully cured and you've mixed it right and all those things. You'll see all of those details on like a lot of the information if you start doing your own research on finding your own resins. But then the mica powders that I showed, the black diamond ones, those have been the ones that I have liked the best for mixing up the blues. It gives it a really cool like iridescent look. They do make a white, but I did not care for using the white, having that iridescent look on the white foam. It just, to me, it didn't look right. It needed to be more of a matte color and more of a matte finish. So I have been using the Eye Candy resin tint paste, I believe it's called. I'll pop it up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. That has been giving me the best effects, and be on the lookout because I do have a large board that I did the waves on that I'm going to be sharing here on YouTube, and I can't wait for you to see it because it turned out so awesome and I'm so excited. Let me know if you would like to see obviously that one, but then if you want to see like the full thing from like picking the wood, cutting the wood, sanding it, prepping it, all that stuff, leading all the way through making a resin project, I would love to know if that's something you're interested in. And I will see you next time.